Everyone, welcome back to my next video. Well, today this is going to be part 2 of a series on camping on dispersed land in the National Forest and BLM. The first one we talked about ownership of the land and how and stewardship of the land and treating the land with the respect and the moral dignity that every living thing deserves. And so now we're going to develop 10 commandments. The 10 commandments of dispersed camping on public land. And the whole premise of them is the golden rule. Now that's something that Jesus said in the Bible, but it's, you know what, it's a basic moral tenet of nearly every religion, every spiritual belief on the planet. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's how I just hope I can communicate that to you. Yeah, I'm going to give you rules and regulations that are just, you know, common sense. Moral, ethical rules and regulations that we should all follow, just because we're good, kind, compassionate people. And that's the emphasis I want to place on everything I do, that we are good, kind, compassionate people. So here are the 10 commandments of dispersed camping. Number 1 is obey all local laws. Wherever we go, you know, in every different area, there will be local laws specific to that area that the local rangers and sheriffs and local authorities will have established. So some examples of local laws will be fire bans. In some areas you can build a fire with no problem. In another area you'll get there and there will be absolutely forbidden because the fire danger is so extreme. Another example is through a lot of the land around Yellowstone, you're not allowed to have tents. You're not allowed, I mean, there's a rule, post, right, a signboard says no tents, because there are so many bears and they are so active that they'll go right through a tent. You have to be in a hard-sided vehicle. That's not common, but that's a type of a local rule that you need to know about. And if that's the law, you need to obey it. The second, nearly always, if there's a body of water, there will be specific rules to that body of water. You can only camp within 100 feet, 200 feet, and it will be vary with each body of water. Another example is out on a lot of places out in the desert Southwest in particular, but all over the West, there will be cattle tanks full of water. And you're almost always forbidden to camp within a quarter mile of a cattle tank. So if you find a cattle tank, and they're usually marked on a better map, don't camp within a quarter mile. A ranger will come and ask you to move because you're breaking the law. And so why go through that hassle? And you don't want cattle running through your camp. So don't camp within a quarter mile, and know the local law. Maybe it's different in this state. Maybe it's one state it's a quarter mile, maybe another state it's a half mile. So know the rules pertaining to water. Time limits. The time limits are usually on public land 14 days, but they vary. There is one place in the Bridger-Teton National Forest where I know it's 5 days because it's such a popular place. It's only 5 days. And there's a signboard when you go into camp there and it says 5 days. So know your local laws. Normally it's 14 days. I've seen it 16 days and then you get an extra couple. So know the local laws, time limit laws, and obey them. Another one is dogs. Now here in the desert Southwest, across much of the West, if your dog chases cattle, a rancher can legally pull out his rifle and shoot your dog dead. He's completely within his right. The law says your dogs can't chase and harass wildlife or cattle, and if it does, the rancher can shoot them. And I know of cases where that's happened. So know the rules, know the local laws. If you know that's true, you know there's cattle out, you know your dog chases cattle, don't let it go. Your dog can die, and you will be in the wrong when it does, because that was posted somewhere that the local rancher has the right to shoot your dog. So that's a rule you need to know. That's a very important one. And then a lot of places have invasive species rules, and I'm not going to go into them. They're all too different. There might be about watercraft. It might be about firewood, not being able to transport firewood because you're transporting bark beetles, which have been become a huge killer across the West. So know the invasive species laws in your area. And there are others. These are just the ones that came to my mind. Know all local laws and obey all local laws. Rule number 1, we don't break the law. We understand from the last video that the National Forest and BLM Ranger is the thin green line against the destruction of our public land, and we don't want to participate in the destruction. So we obey the rules. You can laugh at them and mock them, but they're there for a reason. So follow the local rules. Number 2, Use pre-existing campsites and trails. You don't, now in the desert it's a little different. It's all, desert concrete is basically just a big open campsite to be had. And a big one, part of that is don't create new fire rings. Well, again, in the desert, building a new fire ring is no big deal. You would be allowed to. So that's a local rule, again, that you would have to know. Can I build a fire ring? In most places in the national forest, you cannot. Some places in the desert, you can. In national monuments, you can almost never. It's broadly posted everywhere. Don't create shortcuts. Is particularly with switchbacks. Don't cut between the switchbacks. The reason being is it creates a water path, and the water path going down, switchbacks are going up a hill, so you're on the side of a mountain. That will create a new water path. It will create a new gully that can destroy the whole trail. So trails are designed with the flow of water in mind. So don't create new trails. Follow the trail, and you'll protect it in the long run and protect all of our access to that land. Don't create new roads. If you've got an ATV, and you can just head off into the desert, and then somebody else will come along that and see that faint trail, and he'll head off into the desert, and somebody else will come along, and before long, you've created a whole new road. Don't create new roads. Stay on the roads. Nearly all public land now has a motor vehicle use map. They're working on them for the BLM. It's travel management. It's called a travel management plan. This is where you can drive, and you can't drive anywhere else, and if you do drive somewhere else, you're breaking the law and can be cited. So don't create new roads in your vehicle or your ATV or in anything else. Don't create new roads. Number 1 was obey all local laws. 2, use pre-existing campsites and trails. And 3, noise. Boy, this is the biggest thing I get complaints about all the time. I'm putting up on the screen a screenshot of the rules. There are very specific rules in both the National Forest and the BLM land, federal laws that say you cannot make excessive, unreasonable noise on BLM land. You can see the actual rules. They're called CFRs, Code of Federal Regulations. These are federal laws that control the public land. Title 36 controls National Forest land. Title 43 controls BLM land. I'm putting them up right now. You can see them. Title 36 pertains to the National Forest. Look at number D, causing public inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm by making unreasonably loud noise. It's against the law to come out onto the National Forest and make unreasonably loud noise. Who gets to decide what's unreasonably loud? Well, I'm not a lawyer. I'm neither a lawyer nor a law enforcement officer, so I don't get to tell you. But here's what I can tell you. If a group of 100 people are at the RTR and they make so much noise that 63 people call the police to complain, that's an unreasonable amount of noise. Common sense tells you that. If you're running your generator 24 hours a day and it's a contractor's generator and no one near you can sleep and they're all complaining and they're all coming to you and asking you to please stop, don't run this generator 24 hours a day, and you insist on running it 24 hours a day, you are making an unreasonable noise. Now let's look at the BLM land. It's Title 43. It's number 8365.1 through 4. Look at Section A. No person shall cause a public disturbance or create a risk to others or public lands by engaging the following activities. Number 1, making unreasonable noise. It's illegal to go on public land, BLM land specifically, and make so much noise that you cause a disturbance. How are you going to do it? Well, you're going to run your generator 24 hours a day, a contractor's generator. A Honda 1000, one of the little Honda Quiet Hondas, you could run those a lot, but you still can't run it 24 hours a day. But if you got people camping 50 feet away from you, they're going to hear it, and they don't want to hear it. They have the right, the moral right, to go to public land and not listen to your generator. And you don't have the moral right to force them to listen to it. It's unreasonable. And they'll call the rangers, and the rangers will come out and say, this is unreasonable, don't do it. And then he has the authority to back that up. So we have a mutual understanding, both morally, ethically, and legally, that making excessive noise on public lands when you're camping is just wrong, and don't do it. That includes generators, it includes playing loud music with your instruments, It can even mean a bunch of people sitting around and drinking generally and talking in very loud voices and just bothering everyone around them. It's just a matter of the golden rule. See, these are the rules, but who wants to live by rules? Let's live by our own internal moral ethical clocks, which say treat other people the way they want to be treated. And you don't want to go to the desert or to the national forest and listen to everyone else's music. They don't want to either. So just treat people well and all these issues go away. But these are the rules. And so also if you can't do it for any other reason, then obey the rules. Now let's talk about human waste. This is a biggie. There are a lot of rules about human waste. And for me, it's very simple. I pack it in, pack it out. I poop in a bucket and I use a bag and I just then take it with me and dispose of it in a dumpster. That's what I do. Now, if you have an RV, it's equally easy for you. You have a black tank, a gray tank. You pee and you poop. It goes in the black and the gray tank. You leave there and you dump it down the dump. Again, that's pack it in, pack it out, isn't it? Now, you can legally almost always do cat holes. Now, a restriction there is we're going back to water. A lot of these are very intermixed. You'll see that. A lot of the question is, what about water? Sometimes you're not allowed to dig a cat hole within 100, 150, 200 feet of a body of water, a river, a stream, or whatever it may be. So let's describe what is a cat hole. Cat hole needs to be 6 inches deep, not less. If it's less, the squirrels will dig it up and scatter it around, and not more. If you go more than that, then you'll go too deep and it won't break down because the soil depends on exactly where you are. The soil can get too cold and it won't ever break down. And if it's at this right elevation where it gets warm and the critters can get into it, I mean the microbes and things like that, worms, it'll break down and go away, and that's fine. Too low and it gets cold and never breaks down. Too close, the four-legged little critters will dig it up. And cat holes work fine. They're legal on nearly all public land. Just be careful about other people. Never, 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 never. How often? Never, 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 never poop on the ground and leave it there. Oh my goodness, I've gone into campsites when I was a campground host and as a dispersed camper. Gone into a campsite and there is in the back corner, and sometimes not even the back corners, they don't even hide it. What are people thinking? Like I said, there's a small percentage of people who either through malice or ignorance go out to destroy the public land. Every element and shred of decency in you says don't do that. Don't ever do that. And all we're trying to do is appeal to that common element of decency. Don't do any of these things. Don't play your music so loud everyone in the campground has to hear it. Everyone in the area has to hear it. Just don't do it. Don't do any of these things. Use common sense. Have a basic moral compass of treating each other well, and we'll be fine. Now we'll talk about the fifth commandment, which is trash. Pack it in, pack it out. Again, this should be so obvious, shouldn't it? You don't leave your trash lying around. And yet, as a campground host for 4 years, I would go into places and people would just leave their trash. I had a campground that was free, and for some reason there was no trash dumpsters. And it was clearly posted numerous places, pack it in, pack it out. No trash removal, take it with you. And on a regular basis, I would go in, they would neatly load up all their trash in garbage bags. The squirrels, I was in the Sierras, their squirrels were huge, the size of small dogs. And they were everywhere. And the squirrels would rip it open, and I'd come there, and their trash would just be in every square inch of the campground. And it just infuriated me, folks. And yes, that wasn't maliciousness, it was ignorance, but I still had to clean up all their trash again. I came in, and I think I spent an hour or two one day, because I won't say the words I'm thinking, these people, and I use that, they were people. I got to always remember they were people, ignorant people, but people had just left their trash in the bags, and it was everywhere, and I spent the whole half of my day cleaning up their trash. Don't do that. Don't ever think of public land as your dumping place. And I see that out in the desert especially a lot, but you see it in the National Forest just as much. They decide that they can go and find a little gully and they can dump all their trash in it. It's not a dump. This isn't a dump ground. Don't go and dump your crap out on public land. Another one I cannot comprehend is the idea that no, I can't, and people who would never leave their trash somehow think it's okay to leave it in the fire ring. What goes through your mind? You put a tin can in the fire ring, is it going to magically dissolve? The next camper, it's going to be invisible, so the next camper that comes can't see it? Then I see this an amazing amount too. People are leaving that day, they break camp, they have their breakfast, they leave all the trash from breakfast in the fire ring. Like the next guy, whoa, I want your trash. Please leave it for me. I'll burn it for you. There's nothing magical about that fire ring that says leave trash here. There should be a sign up in every campsite. Do not leave trash in the fire ring. Please don't do that. Just common sense, common decency, common consideration of other people. Don't leave your trash for them to find. And there's another kind of trash that we often don't think about, and it's micro trash. And this is what I saw the most. When I came into a campsite, it would be really clean. But here, you know, when you have a candy bar and you tear the little piece off the end, that little piece would be on the ground. The candy bar wrapper would not be. People would almost always take that. And what I would find a lot was Band-Aids. You know, they go out there, they get a little cut, they put a Band-Aid on, and it comes off because, you know, you're busy and you're active. And so I'd find Band-Aids. Cigarette butts. Oh my goodness. I went into a campground once. Here's the fire ring. I counted. There were so many, I counted. I picked up 50 cigarette butts. This was just over a weekend. I picked up 50 cigarette butts from around that campfire. He'd thrown it 2 inches more. It would have burned in the fire, and he couldn't do it. What went through that guy's mind? I had to go in and pick up all those cigarette butts. Let me tell you another story. I was in a campground, and a couple came in. They had 2 Samoyeds. Samoyeds are white dogs, pure white. They're beautiful dogs. They have the thickest fur you've ever seen. They'd come in and brush the thick fur out of them. Maybe it was spring or fall when they were shedding. I don't know. When they left and I went back to clean their site, the ground was white with Samoyed fur. I've never seen anything like it. It was like it snowed in their campsite and nowhere else. So I couldn't pick it all up. How do you pick up big bunches of Samoyed hair all over the ground? I had to go get my rake and rake the site out again, just like I'd have to rake leaves. I had to rake Samoyed hair. That's all you ever have to think about trash. I'm not going to leave my mess for someone else. And finally, we're going to talk about one that is going to be surprising. Don't leave organic material. And I know it's a common thought that there's nothing wrong with leaving organic material, but don't do it. If I go into a campsite and out in the desert, a big one is onion peels, and this would happen all the time too in my campgrounds. I'd come in, they'd have hamburgers, they'd bring an onion, they'd peel it, they'd throw the onion peels on the ground. It's organic, it's going to break down eventually. But the next camper that's going to come in is going to have to now look at your onion peels. So I picked them all up. Orange peels, especially in the desert. Well, it's natural, it'll just go away. In the desert, all those fruits, an apple, core, anything, it won't go away. It will desiccate, that's the technical word, and it will just dry out and become mummified, and it will be there forever. So for the next 20 years, everyone that comes into that campsite will see that dried up old brown orange peel and that dried up old apple core. And no, the critters don't eat it. It stays there forever. It doesn't belong there. When I come into a campsite, subconsciously I become aware of everything that doesn't belong there. All those little pieces of micro trash, my mind registers those. And if I didn't pick those pieces of micro trash up and that organic material, it would grow, wouldn't it? Because those campsites were occupied every weekend by different people. And so by the end of the summer, it would be covered with little pieces of micro trash. It wouldn't be a subconscious. You'd come in and you'd say, what's all this trash? And all this organic material. What's all this organic material? It's not just going to dissolve in a week or two. It's never going to dissolve in the desert. Never. It'll always be there. And so it's so tempting to think you can just throw your organic material out, and you can't. Please don't do it. Well, folks, I hope you got something out of this video. This is the second video about the 10 Commandments and the golden rule of camping, dispersed camping on public land. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you later.